Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the anatomy of atrophy. When we look at our modern landscapes, it's not all shiny new skyscrapers and endless expansion. Nope. Increasingly, what defines our world are these massive monuments to systemic failure. We're going to explore the fascinating and honestly quite complex life cycle of urban ambition and ultimately, decay.
So why exactly do multi-billion-dollar dreams end up as literal concrete tombstones? It's so easy to walk past an overgrown lot or half-finished high-rise and just see a derelict building. But to really grasp this anatomy of atrophy, we've got to look way past that superficial aesthetic. We need to dig into the real systemic forces at play here, the economic, political, and sociological mechanisms that turn visionary megaprojects into modern-day ruins.
And to put this into perspective, the sheer scale of the issue is absolutely staggering. Forbes analysts actually estimate that the global cost of stalled infrastructure exceeds $1 trillion every single year. Let that sink in. $1 trillion. This isn't just a streak of bad luck here or there. It's a massive, systemic reorganization of capital and resources that literally leaves trillions of dollars just rotting out in the sun. To make sense of all this, we've got a solid roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the age of abandonment, look at the fall of Motor City, examine speculation in ghost suburbs, dive into hubris and megaproject failures, analyze the toxic social fallout, and finish up with reimagining the ruins.
All right, Section 1, the age of abandonment, monuments to systemic failure. Now, abandonment in our modern world is almost never just a sudden accident. It's typically the terminal phase of a much longer sequence. Think deindustrialization, exhausted resources, or severe economic overextension. But how are we consuming these spaces today? Well, you've definitely seen this all over the internet. Ruin porn. It's the aesthetic consumption of urban decay. And there's actually a huge debate around this in the source material. Some critics argue it's a pretty shallow exploitation, like gazing at a community's failure from a safe distance without really confronting the inequality behind it. But on the flip side, others view this as a form of modern archaeology. They see it as vital archival media capturing disappearing history, which forces a much-needed national dialogue about our shrinking cities.
Moving to Section 2, the fall of Motor City. Deindustrialization in the Detroit paradigm. You see, Detroit is arguably the most significant case study of urban contraction in the Western world. It's the ultimate paradigm of an industrial core that simply lost its purpose. Now, Detroit's descent certainly wasn't an overnight thing. The timeline starts with a massive auto manufacturing boom of the early 1900s. But then, right around the 1950s, the automotive industry actually started decentralizing. They begin moving out of the urban core, looking to avoid unionized environments and snatch up larger plots of land. That industrial shift directly laid the groundwork for the deep sociological unrest and the tragic civil riots of 1967, which ultimately culminated in the massive urban vacancy peaks we saw in the 2010s.
When you look at the numbers, the sheer scale of this erosion is wild. We're talking about a 61.4% population decrease over 60 years. Because as those employment opportunities shifted out to the suburbs, the city's tax base just hollowed out. By 2010, roughly 40 square miles of the city's territory was left completely vacant. People actually started calling this phenomenon the urban prairie. But behind all that physical decay is a very stark human reality, and it's perfectly represented by the number 89. That was Detroit's segregation index in 1990. Basically, a combination of restrictive housing policies, federally sanctioned redlining, and blockbusting severely restricted where minorities could live. An index of 89 means that nearly 90% of either white or black residents would have had to pack up and move just to end segregation in that metro area. It's a really powerful metric showing how physical abandonment and racial displacement are completely intertwined.
On to Section 3. Speculation and ghost suburbs, the growth Ponzi scheme. So, shifting gears from cities that lost their purpose, let's look at places that never really had one to begin with. We're talking about the speculative sprawl across the American West and South, driven by what analysts actually call the growth Ponzi scheme. If we compare a classic 19th century boom and bust Western ghost town with 20th century speculative suburban sprawl, a pretty incredible pattern emerges. In the past, places like Bodie or Rhyolite were built entirely around extracting gold or silver, and they were abandoned the very second those resources ran dry. Fast forward to modern developments, and sure, the architecture changes from dusty mining shacks to modern cul-de-sacs, but the underlying mechanism of abandonment completely repeats itself. We're still building massive infrastructure that is totally disconnected from any actual sustainable economic demand.
Take California City, for example, designed back in the 1950s to rival Los Angeles. Today, it's over 200 square miles of paved desert grids with almost zero homes. It was totally doomed by extreme geographic isolation and a lack of water. Now compare that to Lehigh Acres over in Florida. This was a development hit brutally hard by the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. It basically became what's known as a feral suburb. A bizarre landscape where brand new homes sit right next to overgrown, empty lots, lacking even the most basic municipal water or sewer infrastructure. Which brings us to Section 4. Hubris and megaproject failures. Billion-dollar ghosts. Because listen, this is definitely not just an American phenomenon. It's a worldwide epidemic of wasted capital. Just look at the volume of this wasted capital globally. In Malaysia, you have Forest City, a $100 billion eco-utopia that now sits as a massive jungle ghost town. Down in Texas, the superconducting super collider was abandoned after sinking $2 billion and digging 14 miles of tunnels, all because political priorities suddenly shifted. Then there's the $15 billion Yucca Mountain nuclear repository in Nevada, completely stalled due to fierce political gridlock. And of course, the $750 million Ryugyong Hotel in North Korea, stopped by economic collapse. Sudden recessions or political shifts can just instantly doom these monumental undertakings.
So the crucial takeaway here is pretty simple. Having the money to start a multi-billion-dollar project absolutely does not guarantee you'll finish it. Economic tides turn, political regimes fall, or massive environmental miscalculations are made. You deal with shifting priorities, local opposition, or supply chain disconnects. The capital dries up, and boom, we're left with these colossal concrete skeletons.
Let's look at Section 5, the toxic social fallout, the human and environmental cost. These ruins don't just sit there peacefully fading away. They actively harm the communities left around them.
The physical decay has a measurable impact on human well-being through this vicious crime blight spiral. First, a vacant property drops the home values next door. Lower values mean a declining tax base, which forces cuts to essential services like police and fire departments. Without oversight, those empty buildings become low-risk hubs for crime and arson. This creates a deep, pervasive sense of fear, which in turn triggers even more residents to pack up and leave. It's a completely self-perpetuating cycle. And we can't forget the massive, hidden climate impact. Abandoned infrastructure is actually one of the world's biggest covert polluters. In the U.S. alone, uncapped, derelict oil and gas wells could be leaking up to 7 million metric tons of methane into the atmosphere every single year. That's the equivalent emissions of 2 million cars. It's a staggering problem that experts estimate will cost around $100 billion globally just to clean up. The Salton Sea disaster in Southern California is another stark reminder, this time of environmental injustice. Back in the 1950s, this was a booming resort destination. But as the waters receded, they exposed a dry lakebed, or playa, that was completely laced with toxic agricultural runoff like arsenic. Now, whenever the wind blows, these toxic dust clouds blanket the nearby Imperial County. It transformed an accidental wasteland into a severe public health hazard, one that disproportionately impacts lower income and minority populations. All right, finally, Section 6, Reimagining the Ruins, the 2026 Revitalization Paradigm. We're actually moving into a new era now, one where we're figuring out how to extract new value from these failed environments through adaptive reuse. Detroit is actually leading the charge here, demonstrating a fresh public-private commitment to urban innovation. Instead of leaving these decaying automotive cathedrals as unworkable ruins, billions of dollars are now being poured into adaptive reuse.
You've got Ford restoring Michigan Central Station into a high-tech mobility innovation district, and the reactivation of the infamous Packard plant site into a modern manufacturing and cultural hub. It totally proves that these spaces can be reborn. Similarly, look at the rebranding of the Salton Sea into Lithium Valley. This perfectly highlights how we can integrate environmental remediation with critical climate policy. It turns out the geothermal brines sitting beneath that toxic playa contain enough lithium to supply the batteries of nearly 300 million electric vehicles, roughly 40% of U.S. lithium demand. We are quite literally mining the mistakes of our past to fuel a greener future.
Ultimately, it seems these billion-dollar ghosts are finally being exorcised. There's this fantastic perspective from the sources that views the ruins of the past century not as mere liabilities, but as pieces of the real. It's the idea that these structures allow for the construction of a future built upon heritage, rather than just erasing it entirely. We're preserving key elements of our industrial past while adapting them for the 21st century to build real, sustainable technological resilience. So, the next time you drive through your own city, take a really good look at the infrastructure being funded today. Look at the massive new housing developments and public projects. Are they genuinely integrated into the true needs of the community? Or are they just repeating the same cycles of speculative hubris we've unpacked today? Are the spaces in your city built for a sustainable future? Or are they destined to become the next billion-dollar ghost? Hopefully, this explainer gives you the tools to help ensure our cities build a resilient future rather than just financing the ruins of tomorrow.